Welcome to Finding Inspiration. The goal of this show is to comment, discuss, and critique various artworks that I find on the internet that I think are very good, or of what other people request for me to talk about. And the purpose of this, the goal, is to try to gain some kind of inspiration from the artwork and to possibly gain additional knowledge from it to improve one's own artistic abilities. I hope you enjoy the show. Well, our first piece of the day here is a special one. This is Neon Refractions by Farbort. And I really like this one a lot. When I first saw it, I just thought, yes, this is a special piece of art, just because I don't see stuff like this very often. And the style and really what I kind of initially get is all these merging forms and layers. I love seeing that, especially when it's done in this particular manner. And it's done to such a point where you almost can't tell where the layers begin and end. Certainly we can see the tops of them, but we don't know. It's kind of hard to tell what is the, what clearly where the layer is, where's the bottom and where's the top layer. Which is great because you have these shifting of forms and these pulling of perceptions going on, and these kind of very subtle intermingling organic and geometric forms. I love seeing the combination of those two. You can kind of pick pieces out, and there certainly are parts of it, and it all seems to interlock as you really focus on each individual point and stretch out from them. You do get to see how there is this massive intermingling of forms. And I almost want to think of this being kind of what the 10th dimensional multiverse liquid sort of looks like. This sort of just merging of all these forms and everything, all intermingling, interlocking in this hyperdimensional, almost impossible to understand sort of mechanism and just how it all interlays. And I also love how the colors go from this red to this magenta and blue to teal to yellow. So really good movement of color going throughout this. And I mean, as I'm just looking at it more, this is something that is one of those works of art that you can just stare at for a long period of time. And I think if you're an artist and you can achieve something like that retains that value of where someone can just stare at it for just ever, then you've definitely made borderline masterpiece in some case. But that's sort of individual to time, I guess. But definitely a great work of art here. This work we have here is Geist, possibly Geist if you want to use German accent for that. By Soul Collector. This piece right away, the sort of aesthetic and vibe that I'm getting from it, it really reminds me of tarot cards, the kind of art that you would see on a tarot card, which has very much to do with sort of occult symbolism and the whole just massive rabbit hole that is entailed with all of that. So, of course, just focusing on the actual forms and focal points here, there's a bit of depth going on. There's a lot going on. Of course, you kind of have this Yggdrasil kind of world tree, which I really like. I love that idea. Of course, atop the world tree is Ytra, I think it is, or Vertra, who is sort of the watcher. And you got these two different figures, and this guy on the right with sort of like this gas mask kind of thing, and he's coming out of this little spire of trees and everything, and kind of, you guys see that harking back to, again, sort of ancient cultures and all of that. He's got that cool bird, and there's flowers behind the mask, and everything, and you see his eye and everything like that. He looks like he's kind of part of that, again, spire of trees. And then the guy on the left who is riding some kind of winged, there's a little bit of phallic imagery there, but it's kind of like a tortoise head sort of And the figure kind of is this hooded guy. He kind of reminds you of that classical imagery of death. But he's kind of funky looking and kind of cute and sort of whimsical, and kind of flying around. You got all these bubbles going everywhere, which is a nice piece of atmosphere, and it seems like that's coming from this sort of cat-like figure at the bottom. So the bubbles are rising up, and you have this sort of pulling in this range of all this sort of marshy lands going up to that tree, and then sort of this flattened sort of illustration of like the sun kind of to the left. I like all of how everything is merging together. The composition is really nice. You have this direct, immediate piece in the middle with the tree. You have the foreground. You have that little guy in the bottom. So your eyes kind of focus on the tree and then down to the cat, left or right to these other characters, and you kind of then pull back and view it all as a whole. It's nice and cohesive. All the colors work well. The lines work well. I really enjoy this one. It's fairly peculiar too, which is what I think is kind of the best part of it. This piece here is Stings of Remorse by Surlo. And now when I sort of look at this and kind of take it in, I do really like, of course this is focused on this character. The majority of the canvas is enveloped by this character. It's good horizontal canvas, so horizontal canvases and works are good for showcasing landscapes. So we have a bit of that. The background, clearly the character is in the foreground, sort of the mid, and very much in mid. There's nothing in front of this character. So the mid and backgrounds, we got sort of like a fence that's kind of sort of damaged and destroyed, and clearly it's not going to the right, so that's just kind of there. You have all these sort of, this is what I would just describe it as brush, kind of right just behind the character. And there's quite a bit of fog that extends a good amount. Maybe you can make out possibly tops of trees, but then you have basically the clouds. And it's this dark, nice good dark setting, which sets the mood for the clouds, their color and everything comes from the moon, which has a very, whichever kind of crescent that is. So there's not too much light emanating from the moon, so you shouldn't have too much coming from it, but the majority of the light comes from the candle in their hands, so that is well done, but it's a small light. So this is a really good way of showing sort of having these two light sources and the colors of them and everything all interacting together. That does very, very well. I like that, and the whole form of everything is great too. This sort of cloak that is kind of torn, and you've got this sort of eyes wide shut mask this guy's wearing, but you don't even know if there's anything beneath that. So this is very kind of ephemeral creature. I really dig this design, and the layering of everything is really awesome, and I love sort of things that are kind of ripping off and going behind, kind of emanating. I like that kind of feel. And you get a little sort of, I don't know what that little urn is called that has the smoke coming out of it. I know that's predicated and used in a lot of religious sentiments, so there could be some, there's some occult symbolism here a little bit, but definitely just a really nice, fairly calm scene. I think this would maybe be good for, I don't know, maybe like having it in your bedroom or bathroom or something like that for kind of calming and ease. But there's kind of an eeriness to it, which gives it a nice additional element of emotionalism that does very well. It works out really great. Now we've covered a good range of art today, and the first one being something that I kind of thought was fairly psychedelic art. And this piece here, New Sphere by Turance, this definitely is, I think, more within the lines of psychedelic art, because psychedelic art, again, sort of has, it's heavy on symbolism, but also is generally the reflection of the psychedelic user as they are utilizing whichever psychedelic compound. So here in this, what's great is we have also a good display of emotionalism. So we have a plot and a story in this. Now you have an earth that is in sort of the bottom left. You can see that. And from there, you have this spiraling column that kind of echoes out and wraps around and pulls, and then right above the earth, you then creates this sort of landscape, rippling landscape, kind of this lattice that then flows over. You have these trees that come up of it. It is sort of a background, the kind of clouds on the right, and then this sort of sky, sort of that sky that the primordial man is used to, just full and bright with stars and constellations, and sort of the deepness of space. And you have this character that is sort of forming up, this human creature forming up from this sort of liquidy lattice, and it's fairly human. And you can see that in one hand he's holding this red kind of object that is going off in geometrical sort of lines, very straight, right angles a lot there. In the left, you have sort of a more earthy kind of, green's got nature in one hand, and maybe the right hand is that sort of pain and fire. Then above, sort of his head is kind of opening up into this just crazy vortex, which goes to other sort of realms. And to me, the bottom part is, I'm not 100% sure what that could sort of mean. Dual realities, shifting of space-time, ancient entities. So all of these elements are fairly common in psychedelic art, and all of this is displayed here with this, and I really like this one. The art style is great, good aesthetic, and the whole story and kind of element from it. What I also get with this is something that I have been toying with, this idea of a supernal man, a supernal being. From Earth, we evolve into this higher element that this sort of man character is, that is able to control the elements around him and exists impermeable throughout a higher dimension of space. And then who knows kind of what comes from that. Definitely is kind of what I'm getting from this. I love it a lot. Great stuff. And for our last piece here, we have Spring Day is Coming by Shark's Den. And definitely a sci-fi piece. I think it's nice to have this. I kind of would have chose this for the end. It's very happy and kind of a nice sort of serene element. What's nice is sort of the initial emotion you're getting from the character that's in the foreground here. I get this, the story is kind of the area this exists in, the setting. You got these glaciers and this sort of lake and what seems to be kind of like eggs, and these possibly you have sort of a hatched egg. You have the piece kind of near her to the left, and one kind of closer near where the text is, and you have a full sort of compact egg. Is a good way of showing without telling, and she's also holding one. So you kind of see that they found these eggs, and then maybe these little jellyfish dudes kind of come out of them, which is really cool. And they're kind of, it's very, mysterious and ephemeral, but also kind of joyful and beautiful at the same time. And this woman is sort of relishing in this finding and this experience of this new life, this interesting form that seems to not really want to burden or destroy her experience or her form at all. And so you're able to kind of just jovially exist within it. Which I like that. I like that sentiment. A lot of good amount of sentimentality. It's good to have that in artwork, here and there, and a piece of art that brings that out is nice. And plus, just from an angle of sci-fi art, I particularly like this as well. Now, I'm not sure sort of the deep background sort of beyond these glaciers. I don't really know kind of what's going on there. There is kind of this interesting sort of in the top left, an interesting sort of form there. I'm not quite sure what's going on. And plus, you're not getting an idea really of beyond that. Now, just because we don't see stars or anything, maybe some of those different red and kind of pinkish lines way in the back behind the glaciers, those could be rings. So maybe, those are far away rings, and this could be like an icy part of a moon near something like Saturn or what have you, right? That's definitely a possibility. At least what I am thinking up. And good technical art, too, on her sort of suit there. That's awesome. Definitely keep this kind of art up. And, I hope you guys can enjoy these fun little jellyfish guys. I hope all of you enjoyed this episode. Please watch the next one. Should be coming out a day from now. I try to do this Monday through Friday as much as I possibly can. And if you have any sort of ideas, or if you want me to talk about a particular artist, a particular work of art, just send me a message. My Twitter info is below in the details, and hey, you can just leave a comment or whatever you like to do. All of it works the exact same. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it. Have a good one.